This video is sponsored by Squarespace. As a Galaxy Z Fold 4 user, I'm feeling very confused right now. Do I want an awesome phone for multitasking that is also a mini tablet? Or do I want a smartphone that is essentially like having a camera superpower in my pocket? I still hold the Fold 4, of course, in a very special light. It's been amazing for me in the last few months. But with the new S23 Ultra, it got me thinking, if I had to pick one, which one would it be and why? I'm Alex and I do down-to-earth tech videos. I think we've all experienced this before, and it's typically when you're talking about really good products from two different brands, not from the same brand like in this case. In this video, I'll lay out the key differences between the Fold 4 and the S23 Ultra and the similarities as well. And I hope you find it useful because I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in trying to figure out which one is the best option right now. Performance-wise, the Fold 4 has a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 and the S23 Ultra has the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. But trying to see beyond the marketing fluff here, they call the Gen 2 epic, and you gotta love marketing, right? Every company does this, everything is always the best ever. But both are 4nm chips. I'll throw some numbers here on the screen in case you're interested. But if you know the channel and you know me, you know that I'm about to ignore the benchmarks, ignore the specs, and actually use the phone, right? Straight off the bat, there's nothing that I personally do on these phones that make them feel sluggish at all. I run another business outside of YouTube. I'm busy on my phone pretty much constantly every day. For these reviews, I like to push the phones way beyond what I normally do. And even then, whether I was gaming, taking 4K videos, 8K videos for hours, using Samsung DeX for multitasking, for example, editing raw photos in Lightroom, both of these phones performed amazingly well. Snapdragon is doing a great job here on these devices. It's great for me because I've had the Exynos before, and it's hard not to sound too excited about these phones, and honestly, I'm kind of lost for words when describing how good the experience has been. People don't seem to be talking about this enough. If this was Apple, everyone would be going crazy right now. The best way for me to compare these phones right now with anything else is to say that, what Apple are doing for computers recently, right, with the M chips and things like that, Samsung are doing with the smartphones and tablets too. As a long-term Apple user myself, yes, that's an Apple Watch, I have no issues in saying these phones are now head and shoulders above the iPhone in pretty much every single way. Enough about Apple though, I just thought it'd be good to give you some context so you know where I'm coming from. The Fold 4 for me is not something that you could compare with an iPhone anyway, but the S23 Ultra is. And I'm still shell-shocked at how much Samsung has managed to improve in comparison with the S22 Ultra. And focusing on performance alone, these phones are capable of so much right now, including, and I know some of you actually do this, using them as a desktop computer. I can run multiple Microsoft apps, use creative apps as well, connect it to an external monitor, pretty much run all my business outside of YouTube using my phone. To be honest, I do use my Tab S8 Ultra for a lot of that these days, but I can see these phones getting me out of jail, more than getting me out of jail, being able to cope with all my work if I wanted to. If you've seen my previous videos, you know that I've been using the Fold 4 since launch last year, and I actually named it Phone of the Year 2022. And a lot of it comes down to the design of this phone. I love how it feels in the hand, and I love the folding aspect. It's new to me. I've never used a foldable phone, but it's beyond the kind of novelty aspect now for me, right? It's something that I use on a daily basis, and there's so much more going for this phone as well. The aspect ratio on the internal screen for watching content and gaming, it's fantastic. And the S23 Ultra, well, I had to actually eat some humble pie in my last video because I did criticize the design for it being kind of too samey and boring. I still think Samsung could have done a little bit more on the look and feel of the back, but maybe it's one of those things, right? If it ain't broke, why fix it? And with these flatter edges now, I do think it made it a lot friendlier to use in comparison with the S22 Ultra. This is the video quality at 4K 30 frames per second recorded on the S23 Ultra, and this is the video quality recording on the Fold 4, also at 4K 30 frames per second. Personally, I prefer 24 frames per second when I'm doing video, but I know I'm a minority here. And going back to the Fold 4 here, you can see that the quality is not actually that bad. When it comes to the camera, these are both flagship smartphones, very expensive devices, right? So we expect amazing camera quality. In general, any flagship these days, whether it's Samsung, Google, or Apple, they deliver amazing results, and that's been the case for a few years now. But we've got to take a pause here and recognize something. Samsung, with the S23 Ultra, did something here with these cameras that honestly, I know it's early days, but look at this footage. I honestly cannot believe it was done on a smartphone, completely handheld in most of these cases here. Just gorgeous for video now. It's the first time I'm saying this. I can finally use an Android phone for videos in a professional way. The Fold 4 is no slouch either and has a great performance, but when it comes to high-end video quality now, yeah, I've got to say it's going to be difficult for any smartphone, not just the Fold 4, to get even close to this quality here. And here's a crazy thought that one of you actually asked me in the comments yesterday. Imagine if the Fold 5 gets some of this camera tech later this year. Oh boy, that's gonna be like game over, right? I think there are so many good things about the Fold 4 already that opened my eyes to this form factor, but one thing that I haven't been able to take advantage of is the camera. I am a difficult customer though, because I use it a lot for my videos, and my default go-to option has been the iPhone, the 14 Pro Max, the 13, the 12, all day long when it came to 4K video. This is now able to do 8K recording, and not just as a gimmick, it can actually do it, right? And clearly this puts the S23 Ultra head and shoulders above everyone else right now, not just the Fold. For a lot of people, the photo and video quality that we get out of these devices is way more than they will ever need. And looking at these photos and videos, you can see, right, how incredible these phones are getting. It's a little bit foolish to even attempt to compare these devices, but despite the difference in quality, you would be very happy with any of these. I'm not sitting on the fence, by the way. I will share my recommendation in just a moment, but if you're someone who relies a lot on quality of photos and videos, then of course the S23 Ultra feels like the smarter choice for you. But here's my down-to-earth sort of take on this. And before you go in the comments and tell me everything I need to know about the camera specs on these phones, my point here is not to say which one is better. I think we all know the S23 Ultra has a superior camera, right? My point here is a lot of people will look at these photos and videos produced by the Fold 4 and consider them to be more than good enough. But if your decision is purely financially, right, the S23 Ultra is looking very good right now for the price, especially if you're able to get a really good deal on your upgrade. Using the display outside is interesting. Samsung has always delivered on this, I think since the Note 20 or S21 Ultra, we've had incredible displays on Samsung. I was really curious actually about the S23 Ultra display because of that peak brightness of 1750 nits. This is essentially lower in comparison with other devices like the iPhone. But again, taking the specs aside and in practical terms, remember, I've used all of these devices and I can say that the S23 Ultra, when it comes to using it in the sunlight, it's almost unbeatable. I haven't put a screen protector on this yet, so what you see here is pretty much what I'm seeing. Where the Fold 4 really comes to life is when you're actually using that larger display area for things like, gaming, using the S Pen, or even watching content if you want to crop a little bit. But watching content on the Fold is a bit of a mixed bag, Because of this weird aspect ratio, which I like, by the way, 23.1:9, I think it is, most content will add those black bars at the top, and what you end up seeing on the screen is actually smaller, it feels, than the S23 Ultra's display. But unlike the recent iPhones, the display on both of these devices is super clean, devoid of any distractions or Monkey Island, and I'm really enjoying the slightly less curved aspect of the S23 Ultra now. If you're moving from Apple and you want to have a bit of fun, you can actually have, with One UI 5, you can actually get a Monkey Island to appear, but it's only when you're using the timer. Most of the time, to be honest, I don't actually mind the island so much on the iPhone, but this is so much better. Look at all that screen real estate. It's just awesome for watching content. And before I show you more about these amazing displays, there's one thing that a lot of reviews out there don't talk about enough for me. And to be fair, maybe that's because this wasn't anything special before. I'm talking about audio quality. This feature was kind of neglected on smartphones previously in my view, and it's not just the playback quality through the speakers, but recording on the internal mics as well. Let's move over to the podcast area. I've got a couple of really good microphones here. These are like professional level microphones. So I thought I'd record this next segment using the Fold and the S23 Ultra, as well as these mics as well. Not so much to compare them, but to give you a reference of how good these microphones are now on these phones. And I'll show you now on the screen which microphone I'm using, so you can be the judge of how good they are. There's a lot of background noise here, which I can't really help. Hopefully, it'll be fine. Both these phones have really stepped up their game in the audio space, which rhymes with today's sponsor, Squarespace. If you've been thinking about creating a website or replacing an old one, Squarespace has everything you need. I've been a customer myself for many, many years, and it couldn't be easy to create your website and publish it yourself. Having a website these days is super important, whether you're trying to sell your products, showcase your work, or just promote your business. What I really like about Squarespace is that you require no previous experience in web design or anything like that. Very much like the Fold 4 and the S23 Ultra that gives us all the tools to create content, Squarespace will give you all the tools that you need to create your website. They've got these excellent templates in several different styles as well, really nice and polished. You can set up your website as an online shop, take payments for example, and like I mentioned, it could be a website for you to showcase your business, or if you're an artist, you could share your artwork there. I love how quickly it is for me to update my website with just a few clicks really, and as you can see here, anyone is able to do this. There's so much more you can do with Squarespace. Out of all their features, the top 3 for me are online stores, custom templates, and having these member areas. With member areas, you can create different packages with perks for your customers and offer them different subscription options. It really couldn't be easier to get started. Just like the S23 Ultra and the Fold 4 are removing the barrier to entry for audio recording, Squarespace are removing the barrier to entry for creating a website. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to commit, go to squarespace.com/AlexGearTech to get your 10% off when you buy your first website or a domain. And thanks again Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Just to give you an idea, this is Pro Video. I'm obviously talking facing the screen, not facing the camera, so the microphone might be a little bit off. But just to give you an idea here of the quality in terms of HDR10+. I haven't looked into the detail of what Samsung did here. It's definitely better than the Fold in terms of the microphone. Not saying that the microphone on the Fold is bad, but this feels like a professional recording. It's just incredible. If you watched my previous S23 Ultra videos, you probably knew that was coming, right? Incredible audio quality. But the audio quality on the Fold 4 has actually been an underrated feature for me. Not many people mention this, and I think it's a bit unfair on the Fold. And I know because of the size, it has a slight advantage in comparison with other phones like the Pixel 7 Pro. But even when comparing with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I just think the Fold 4 sounds much better. I really enjoy watching content without headphones sometimes, so having decent speakers is really important to me. One thing we as tech reviewers always forget to mention is the call quality and the antenna as well. And this was definitely interesting for me because I'm in the countryside, so I get really patchy network when I'm driving. But both these phones so far have been really good. I don't want to drag this out for more than I need to, so I'll leave a link down below in the pinned comment for you where I tested the call quality on both these phones in different scenarios as well. Which brings me to battery consumption. My entire section on battery consumption is as follows. Stop worrying about it. Both these phones will last all day, even on a busy day. People on YouTube, sometimes they get hysterical about the battery, Oh, this phone lasts 10 minutes more than the iPhone, or another YouTuber will say, the iPhone lasts 10 minutes more than the other. My take is, seriously? When it runs out, plug it in. I know I'm downplaying this ever so slightly, because I know there's people out there who work on the road and don't always have a way of charging their phones. But I honestly think that these flagship devices have got so good now that for the majority of us, even if we had to top it up towards the end of the day or overnight, I'm thinking, what's the big deal? Before I forget, this looks like fun. YouTube is really, really hard, especially for a channel like this. I'm doing pretty much everything myself still, growing this channel whilst, kind of doing this in my lunch hour and after hours. If you're enjoying this video, it would be awesome if you gave it a thumbs up. You might think that it doesn't help, but it really, really does. And after this video, have a look on the channel. If you like my stuff, it would be awesome if you subscribed. I'm here at least once a week with a new down-to-earth tech video for you. I've been really excited about this new era that we're getting with Samsung phones now. I love that as consumers, we have competition now and really good choice. Ultimately, that's great for us, to have those options. Sure, there are certain features in the ecosystem that could sway you one way or another, but I've been discovering recently that this ecosystem argument is becoming weaker and weaker. I did an entire video about having this mixed ecosystem, so if you're interested, have a look at that. Coming back to these bad boys here, I'm really shocked at how good they are. Perhaps I shouldn't be shocked. Perhaps it's the remnants of being an Apple fanboy for so many years, right? That wanted these phones to not be so good. I don't know. They certainly are amazing and they are here to stay in my daily usage. They both just highlighted as well how much we've been missing on the iPhone, Sure, 4K videos are great on the iPhone. That's still up there in terms of, the way it looks. But I think Samsung are onto something here. Okay, but which one should you go for? I appreciate that there are different scenarios here. You may be coming from an older phone, or maybe this is your first Android, in which case I'm jealous of you because these are both incredible pieces of technology, whichever way you go. Or maybe you already have a Fold, maybe a 3 or a 4, and you want to see what the fuss is all about on the S23 Ultra. So I'm not going to sit on the fence here. I think there are valid reasons for both these phones, but here's when I would choose one over the other. If you prioritize the quality of photos and videos, there's a clear advantage on the S23 Ultra. And when I say prioritize, I mean you really rely on photos and videos for your business or for your social accounts. The S23 Ultra will definitely give you an edge there. A second scenario might be you prioritize entertainment. So content watching, gaming, and browsing social media. I do think the Fold has an edge there in that case. Most of the games that I enjoy playing are just better on the bigger screen. When it comes to watching content though, the S23 Ultra is actually better for me because even though it's a smaller display, The actual area of the content displayed is slightly bigger, I think, or maybe the same, but on the Fold you get those black bars. Sure, you can zoom in on both of them and you can see the entire screen on the Fold as well, but that's not the same thing, right? You are losing some of the image in that case. The audio quality is ever so slightly better on the S23 Ultra. Honestly, they're both incredible for a smartphone, and if you're watching things with the headphone anyway, then that won't matter. The third scenario is you prioritize multitasking and productivity. For multitasking with DeX, you can toss a coin between these two, not here or there. For multitasking on the device alone, of course the Fold 4 for me is much better. It's just a much nicer feeling working on this, writing is better despite the hinge, and you just get to do more. It's like having a mini tablet really. These are all tangible things that I found useful, and I hope you found useful as well for you to choose one or the other. But don't forget, there's always going to be what you prefer, what's best for you. There are days when I just love using the Fold 4 and I don't always need a super power camera on me, and actually the cameras on this is good enough for a lot of things. And there are days when I love having an absolute beast in my pocket. Talking of which, I can't believe this was shot on a phone. See you soon. If I had to pick one, which one would it be? So I thought I'd record. Oh. Putting the specs to one side. Oh, for fuck's sake.